Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to Angular Space TV. We have another, I think, amazing episode coming up with a guest who you're already familiar with. And we have a very interesting topic for today too. We're going to talk about NgRx Signal Store. I have a lot of questions about it, and I guess everyone watching right now also has a lot of questions. Let's see. We will try to go as deep as we can. I promise not to go over 1 hour. And so, you know what? I don't think I need to say anything more. Welcome our guest. Welcome Rainer Hahnekamp. Hey
Hello,
there.
hello.
Welcome back.
Hi, Armin. Thanks. Yeah, second
Yeah,
time.
we're always welcome. I like to see people coming back. You are the first one of our guests to come back, and that's great.
Yeah.
Hopefully that means the streams are enjoyable and I'm not too annoying as a host.
No, actually, I think that's the reason why someone
Uh,
like me likes it because you're really asking questions. It's more like a conversation that we have, and it's not like just I giving a talk and then that's it.
yeah. My general idea is I want to give voice to everyone in the audience who have questions, and I know I try to also gather like questions from people beforehand, like people that I work with or things that I see on social media, people asking about different tools and libraries or whatever is the current topic that we are going to discuss. And this is a big topic because, as far as I understand, NgRx is, if not the most popular Angular library, but probably like in the top 5 popular libraries. Almost everyone has at least tried it. Everyone is at
There's an
least
opinion.
kind of familiar. Yeah. Some hate it, not the library itself usually, but like the idea, oh, we don't need it and so on.
Yes.
Some love it. I'm in the second camp. I absolutely love NgRx. I don't do projects without NgRx usually. And NgRx Signal Store is now a new big thing, signals and so on. So
Yes.
there's a
Yes.
lot of to unpack there. And maybe, you know what, my first question is, and it is again a real question I've heard people ask, uh, why? We had
Why?
the NgRx store, it works fine, it has select signal. What else do we need?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe first of all, because I very often read this also on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or even on Reddit, where
Yeah.
people start complaining about NgRx, and then the answer is, well, just go with the Signal Store. Maybe just to clarify that the Signal Store is also NgRx.
Yeah.
The NgRx ecosystem kind of exists of 3 libraries, and I think those who say I don't want to use NgRx, they mean what I usually call the global store. So this is what you have when you install NgRx at NgRx store, and that is I would say the large one, the big one, which means it has been around forever, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and that one is based on the Redux pattern, which means it's event based. So it says there are different so-called component services, whatever, but
Yeah.
some elements in your system, they can dispatch an event, and those don't really know who is listening to these events and what happens then. So like a real event-based system. And this comes, of course, with a lot of boilerplate code. But if you have the right size and if you have maybe the complexity where you want to decouple a lot, then event-based system can definitely help you. The problem is, for a very long time, this was the only thing we had. So if you said I need to have like a standardized tool which helps me in state management, then it was always this big thing, always this event-based system. And I think this is the problem that most people have, that they say it's just too much to boilerplate or however you want to call it. This is why we don't like it, because I have maybe a simpler system, don't have that much complexity. I need something simple. Then, because of that, and also time changes, new things come up, we also saw that maybe state doesn't always have to be globally managed. So it is normally very unlikely that everything that you have in your global store can be manipulated or can be changed by any component. very often have this concept or have this thing of the local state, that maybe a certain feature or maybe one component with subcomponents or just the component itself is the only one that should actually access that state and should dispatch or wants to change it. So it doesn't have to be always that complicated. And out of these ideas came then the second library, which was the component store. So this was a lightweighter approach for more local state management. Again, where you said you don't have to have it everywhere. So maybe a decoupling is not necessary. So we can remove this huge event-based mechanism and just make it simple. And this was what the component store was doing.
Yeah.
And both at the moment, they kind of do have a select signal. So when signals came out, NgRx quite quickly also said that we can give you a signal as a state, even when internally it is something else. And because of the arrival of the signals, there was then also the idea, because there were some kind of experiments or some improvements going on in the component store to make it even better. And I was not at the NgRx team at that time, so I heard the story from someone else. And the question that the NgRx team had at that time was if they want to kind of upgrade the existing component store towards what actually ended up being the signal store, or if they just go with a third approach. And the decision was then the second one, that now the third library was created. And the reason was that they didn't want to break too many things, and they didn't want to do too many compromises, because you couldn't just squeeze in all the things you maybe want to do with something when you just start from scratch. And that then was the idea for the signal store, which was from the very beginning designed for signals, also designed maybe after the component store. So like simple first or simplification first. And over time, of course, the signal store also had some involvement or an evolution. And over time, it also has reached this event-based mechanism in the form of a plugin. So today, what you can do is that you have by default a very lightweight, a very simple state management with the signal store. But if you want, and if you have the need for it, you can always selectively, not for everything, but selectively upgrade to this event-based mechanism that we already had in the global NgRx store. And the reason why you want to maybe changes are the extensions, but maybe we go one step after time. But this was just a little bit of a history of the way how the complete library or the ecosystem evolved.
It makes a lot of sense. Actually, I remember that when was Signal Store introduced, like 2 or 3 years ago, I guess.
There was a stable release, and I think when Signals came out, there was already very quickly.
Yeah, I think in the beginning of 2024, I think it was. Yeah. Back then, I remember I was a bit surprised with it, because very quickly they rolled out the select signal like tool, right? And it made sense. And in terms of everything else, I felt that maybe we don't need anything.
Me
like
too. Me too.
It's super cool that we just can select state as signal and that's it. And then when Signal Store was introduced, I had this question about, like, is this more about just simplifying things in terms of, like, you don't need Redux, you don't care about Redux, you can build your state management using just Angular tools, essentially. I mean, there are some tools added on top of them, but very often, as far as I understand, if you want to create like new selectors, quote unquote, you use like computed, because it makes sense. It's just what Angular gives you. That's great. And also there are the added tools. But then there was also this big fight about the event plugin that now is, I think it's stable now, right?
It's stable now, yes. It's 21.
Yes. And I was a big fan of that, because
me too.
For me, state management, I like it event-driven.
Yes.
I get from the perspective of the library, they want to support more things. They want to support also people who don't care about Redux and so on, which fair. But what was interesting to me is that, like, aside of those cool tools like deep computed and things like that, what NgRx Signal Store gives us, as opposed to just having a service with some observables and some signals and just using compute it there.
The extensibility, I think that was it, at least for me, because as you, I was a huge fan of the global store, of the event-based. I really like that structure, and that, of course, you have multiple files, but I have a Java history, so I don't really care about boilerplate. But for me, I was always, and even when the first time when I saw this prototype of Marco, who did and also did the final one, I was a little bit skeptical, because I said, it doesn't have Redux. It's not meant to be used in a very global system, and so on and so forth. And I talked to Marco and I said, hey, you need to put in the Redux as well. We need them. And he said, the Signal Store is designed to be extremely extensible. The extensions, that's maybe even the core part of it, which means if you want, you can integrate your own events in exactly in the same way how you would like to have it. And this then just triggered something, and I just looked at the code and the way of how the things worked, and I realized that's true. I can customize the Signal Store in any direction that I want. And that was for me the reason why I then actually said, okay, maybe it's better to go from the global store to the Signal Store, because I can really customize it in whatever direction I want. And until today, that's just the main selling point of the Signal Store if you compare it to the other two, the extensibility of it. Question is if we want to take a look at it, or if we want to discuss this just in theory.
I think we want to look at it, but just before we move, I think we have some questions.
Please, yes.
Lazy Developer is asking, is it good for global store replacement of NgRx? Well, it is NgRx, right?
It is NgRx.
You can use it globally, right?
Yes. So again, you can use, it's not maybe global. This is also maybe something where people are getting confused. Just because you have global state doesn't mean it needs to be event-based. It's really like the complexity. How many parties, how many elements in your application wants to change it, where you want to reach the decoupling. If you have something very simple and you still want to have it globally, then you can also do it without Redux. So what I always say, global is not enough. Global and complexity together, that calls for Redux.
Yeah.
And yes, since Angular version 21, but also since version 20 of NgRx, the events plugin is available. It actually was introduced in 19.1.2 already, but with 21, it has become stable. So you can actually do the same things that you did with the global store, but you can also downgrade if you want to. So you are not forced to use it everywhere, but only, as I said, selectively in those parts where it makes sense for you.
I would also like to add that Angular dependency injection, because this question actually I think comes back to dependency injection, is such a kind of good abstraction in terms of it's so good that it's sometimes bad, because there is no concept of global store as a rule. Like
Yes.
Even the conventional NgRx store, you can provide it somewhere. You don't need to provide it in the root. That's not what you usually do. That's not what you're supposed to do, like by the rules. But you can have multiple NgRx stores. There's an ESLint rule that prevents you from doing that.
Yes.
Because that's not the idea of how it's supposed to work, but you can do it. And it completely depends on how you define your dependency tree.
Yeah. But just to give a quick answer to the lazy developer, yes, it's a replacement. So if you start now with a new project and you want to use state management, then I would highly recommend to go with the Signal Store.
Yeah. And Michael asks if you are drinking beer or soda.
Soda cola, not dark beer.
Okay.
Not yet. No.
Speaking of the global store, someone asked recently about the support for the global store in the future. They're in a pre-Signals version and considering Signal Store, select Signal from global. I would add to it like what is there to support for the global store, other than bug fixes and
maintaining it, making sure when a new version comes out that it's compatible with whatever Angular is doing. That's the plan at the moment. We know that the global store, if you look at the download statistics, it's still the most used one, not just in NgRx, but also for the complete Angular ecosystem. So we definitely have to maintain it as long as people use it. So there is not plain, or you don't have to be afraid that it's going to be deprecated or something.
Yeah. And what about component store? Now is the question from me. What will happen
Component store, I don't know exactly. I think we call it maintenance mode. It's not deprecated, but it's more like a maintenance mode. But again, it's the recommendation to move on. If you have to get the component store to the Signal store, the transition is extremely easy. I wouldn't even now argue that even with the global store, transition to the Signal store now with the events being stable is also relatively easy. But maintenance mode also means it's going to be maintained.
Okay, I have an idea, and
Yes.
maybe if I find time, maybe I can, try to implement it, like vibe code something along that
Okay.
line. Because I've seen on one of our past live streams, we were exploring Angular MCP server, and there have been like tools, not just document search or whatever tools, but AI tools, experimental, that, for example, helped transition a component to on push.
Yes.
Like there were some instructions that the LM agent would pick up and see how to change something. How about we add something like that to NgRx in terms of an AI guide of which will help the LM agent to convert a component store class to a NgRx Signal Store feature.
Could work. Yeah.
Maybe I need to try that.
Yes. I mean,
I need to try that locally, and maybe I will make a contribution.
definitely. So I think if you explain the LLM enough what the Signal Store looks like, just in case you want to have what is important when it comes to the migration, why not? But it's not necessary. I want to underline that you're not forced to go away from it.
Yeah. But I bet in the Angular community now there is a split that some people are maybe against their will stuck with a bit older versions like 15, 16. Some sadly even older versions. And there's the other side that don't have problems upgrading, and they always want to keep staying on the newest stuff, and especially with AI when it's now a bit easier to do refactoring and so on. Maybe that could be useful.
Yeah, but again, for those who can't use the Signal Store yet, it's not an issue. Just go with the global or the component store. What I didn't say, but what I think is also important, the opinion of the Angular team on state management, because with signals, you obviously have a representation for states. With RxJS, it was more like event representation. Now we have a clear type, which we should use for state. That's also why the Signal Store is quite small, because we can use a lot of the things that Angular or the signals already provide. But the Angular team is also very often asked if they want to bring out the state management or if they think it's already enough what they are providing. And here they are saying, actually, they don't plan to bring out the state management library. They think you need something. And the reason why they don't do it, they don't have the time, first of all, or not the resources, not the priority. But what, for example, Alex Rickerbo is always saying, that there are many approaches to the way how you want to do it. At the moment, I would say Signal Store is very generic, so it's still open what kind of approach you want to use. But for example, in one of your former live streams, you also talked about 10-stack or which is very opinionated for server state. And this is another variation on how you can do state management. And because of these things, and because those things already exist, the Angular team doesn't really have any plans to provide it. They also recommend you to use something.
I think it's interesting. I like that position of the Angular team because, like, we know that Angular is considered to be this opinionated framework, and to an extent, it's true. But I think they kind of impose their opinion on the places where it's very understandable. Like, for example, you can imagine an application that actually doesn't need state management, right? It's not too big. Maybe it's too not very interconnected. I don't know. There could be a lot of arguments. And in the end of the day, if you're sharing just small bits between your components, you can just use services. But for example, like we take HTTP, it's hardly imaginable to have an application that doesn't make any HTTP requests.
Yes.
Why would you make an application? So it makes sense that it's opinionated. Here's the HTTP client, use
Yes.
it. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, you are free not to use it, but there is no good reason to do that.
Yeah, but it's also simple. You send a request, you get an answer. So
Yeah.
that's
And state management is obviously both more complicated and has way more scenarios. And if the core team just went on and said, "Oh, we're doing this. This is the state management," obviously a lot of people would just stick to it, and we would have less movement in terms of libraries and everything that
yes.
could
Yes.
be there.
I mean, they are providing the foundation block, so to say. So they're saying, look, this is what you should build upon, and that's it in the end.
And that's what Michael is saying. Well, the Angular team does have the resources, but they're experimental. And I don't think resources are a replacement, but that's a good question.
Yes.
How is Signal Store playing with resources?
Yeah, at the moment, as Michael said, the resources are experimental, and we don't want to base the Signal Store on something which is still experimental, which can change anytime, because we've made the experience if something breaks, then users probably don't go to Angular, but to complain at the NgRx repository that these things aren't working. So we don't want to support anything which is experimental, which means that this is the official opinion of the NgRx team, but this doesn't mean that you cannot create an own extension for the resources, which, and since Michael asked the question, I think he has implied it, because I'm also with Michael together in the NgRx Toolkit team, and there we have integrated with resource, so a resource integration into the Signal Store. So it is possible to use it already right now.
And one final question before I let you show us something. See, there is a very active stream today. Hey, Rainer, recently the Angular team is using isolated declarations in the TS config to improve build times. What's the best way to leverage this with Signal Store? Any examples?
To be honest, I don't know. I've heard about it, but I didn't look at it into detail. Generally speaking, if it's just about improving the build time, I think it might be decoupled from the Signal Store. Yeah. If there is something in the Signal Store itself, which I hope there isn't, which kind of is an obstacle to enable it in the TS config, then you should probably let us know. But I see this as two different things, hopefully.
Yeah, I haven't tried it, to be honest.
I remember, I think in NG Poland, somewhere at the Q&A or in a keynote, they mentioned it and they said you can do this, and then it's faster.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it's something that you can try relatively easily, though. Like if it breaks, it breaks. If it doesn't, you're fine. Yeah, right.
You know it very quickly, I would say.
Also, I think if you have any problems with that, they would come only from your different Signal Store declarations, and those won't be like too many files to try to fix.
Yeah, but again, just tell us if we break something, and we it deals with leveraging. It deals with
invert typing. Since Signal Store returns an instance of a service, I'm not sure it works easily. I will give it some more thought and see.
Yeah, just try it and let us know. I know that there are some very complicated issues coming from TypeScript with the Signal Store, because it's a lot of type code, not real implementation code, which is also lands in JavaScript, but which gets removed. But I think this should by now also be solved. So we understood the problems, the issues, the patterns that reoccur, and we should have a solution for it.
NgRx is a super active community, my favorite repository on GitHub, to be honest. It's always very helpful. So if you experience any problems, just feel free to submit an issue or open a discussion.
Yes, definitely.
I don't think I ever had any issue that went unnoticed there. So yeah, feel free to contact people on
We had a few things with the state source going on. So we're using internally a private signal to mark the Signal Store, or where we put the actual state where the underlying signal or the signals are located. And there, if you created a library, something in terms of TypeScript compilation could cause an error. But as I said, we fixed this, I think, 1 year ago, and I think we know what needs to be done if that ever reappears.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't forget you had something in your mind that you wanted to show.
Yes, the extensibility of the Signal Store.
Yes, that's the main thing about it. So I'm also eager to see some
Okay,
more.
but I can only provide a draft, and then I hope that it's up to the
Yeah,
imagination of all of you that you
yeah,
understand where this is going to. Okay, then I maybe share the screen.
yeah. Let me switch to better view.
Yeah, and I just turned off the camera, wrong button. So entire screen, right. Armin, you need to tell me if you
Yeah,
see everything because I just see now my screen. And
I see it now. Yeah, yeah.
Great. So maybe a quick introduction into the Signal Store itself, the way how it works. So here you have a very minimalistic Signal Store. In the end, what the Signal Store is generating you is a simple service which contains a signal and it's in its core, and around this that signal or the state, where you usually have a certain logic that manipulates the state. So this is exposed in the form of methods, and what you usually also have in the signal in a service managing a signal are derived values, which we call here just computed in that sense. In the Signal Store, this is what we are doing here. So we are defining here the actual state that we want to manage. So in this case, the state is, where do we have it? Is a type which contains a title of a quiz and then multiple questions. And you see that here, these questions, it's just another simple type, nothing really fancy. And well, what we're doing here is that we are defining here the state, as I said, and then you have here all these with functions. And all these with functions, they are kind of extending the Signal Store with an additional feature. You can say it's a function, or let's just call it a feature which has access to the state and is adding certain properties to the class that we are kind of exposing. So we have here, for example, with computed. So this also helps you in kind of reading your store, because you know when you want to look up the place where all your computeds are defined, then you have here this simple function with computed, and this is where your computeds are. Very simple to find. In this case, it's just a score calculation. So we are accessing here the kind of questions that have been answered, and that's it. And we're returning then here a deep computed, which we can also take a look afterwards. And then we have here the methods. It's a very simple one. We have here just an answer method. So if I click on an answer, then I'm providing the question ID and the choice ID. This is actually the answer ID. And then you see here that we are updating the state via a so-called standalone function that we call patch state. What in this case, what this function is doing, it is updating the questions property of our state. So if you remember, here in our quiz state, we have here the questions, and we are doing here an update of them.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Always.
Which I always had in my mind, which is completely fine. But why is it patch state?
Because
store,
you are not updating
and not something like store.patch state.
Yes. Two things. Because in the beginning, you could also update state of the Signal Store outside of that service, so your component could do it. That was the reason why you need to have a function. And the other thing is, of course, also tree shakeability. The quiz or the Signal Store puts a huge focus on tree shakeability. So we only really want to make sure that only the elements that you are really using end up in the bundle. And there is one thing which is very bad for tree shaking, and that's always a class. Because as soon as you have a class, all the methods, all the properties, even if you don't use them, they have to be there. And the Signal Store is in its core really like an extension mechanism, which says, okay, or like a composition, if you want to use that word, and it says, I don't add an update state function on my own.
Yeah.
I have here my patch state, and they should just call it with the store. And if, in case you don't need it, which is very unlikely, then the patch state would never be used, for example. It would never end up in the bundle. So everything, each element is really designed so that it's really tree shakeable in that sense.
That's amazing, actually. So can I use patch state outside of the store itself?
You can use it if you enable it, but then you're getting an ESLint error or a warning. I don't know which one it is.
So it's not recommended anyway.
No, and it's also disabled by default. So you have to really work against the design of the current Signal Store to do that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And patch state, because when you have a Signal Store, you usually have a signal which doesn't just contain a primitive value like a number or a string. You usually have an object literal, which can also be nested. And whenever you want to update then that particular state, you always want to update parts of it, which means if you would use the normal signal, you would always have to make sure that you are writing an immutable updater function. You always have to do a shallow clone of it. And all these things are done for you by the patch state here itself. The patch state also has other things, other options as well. It's, for example, chainable. You could also provide here multiple updaters, but I'm not sure if we should go into that by now.
Yeah, maybe not that deep.
Yes. But it's, for example, we have certain extensions like with entities where you get utility updater functions, which you can then very easily chain. And then you have an atomic update of the signals at once.
And again, that's the cool part, right? We can also just write extensions for it too.
Yeah, the extensions. So how do we do this best? Let me quickly show so that those who haven't seen the Signal Store yet, that they know how it works then if you want to use it. So we have here our constructor. So I would now be in the position of my component who wants to use the quiz store. As you see here, the quiz store is a class. So the quiz store is not an instance of a class, but it is the class itself. And it's also injectable. So it's available via the dependency injection. And if I would then say quiz store, then I see that from the outside, it has just the members that I have defined before. So I don't see anything of the with state, with methods, with computed. It's just those things that I have defined in with methods and with computed, which are added to the final class. And so I can do here questions, restart. So these are the methods. These are my state properties. Everything is, of course, read-only. So you can only write to that state inside of the Signal Store itself. That's made by design so that you don't have to think about it. And that's the typical structure of how the Signal Store looks to the outside.
Amazing job on the TypeScript types, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Marco.
Where we define all the stuff in the callbacks, but then we get such clean interfaces. We can just use the values and methods.
Yeah. So what you could do now is that you have here, for example, certain features. So if you now think that this quiz store is one of many Signal stores that you have in your application, then what usually happens is that we see certain patterns reoccurring. And I say, the quiz store has this, or this part of the quiz store is something which I would really like to use in another store. And the thing could be that you could say it's not just one kind of feature, but there are multiple features which I can then distribute to other stores. And this is another part where it becomes interesting. For example, I could say, I want to have a certain thing here because this is a quiz. Maybe I want to add here a functionality where I can synchronize it to my local store or something. Local storage. So I would then go on here and I would say, okay, now I have to provide some kind of methods for that. So I would then say here, restore from local storage. I'm not going to implement it, but I'm just writing it down, and then store to local storage. Something like this. Then you could say, with the quiz, that's nice, but maybe there is also something else. maybe we want to have like a redo undo feature, also something
Right.
which happens very often. So I would then say, okay, I have a redo function, I have an undo function, and then maybe it's not that I just have only methods. Maybe I also have something in my computed
Yeah.
where I'm asking, can undo. No, I think I have to provide something, one or just true, can redo. This would then be false.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah. And at the moment, I would say, okay, I've just identified two features which can be used or which can be more or less extracted in a very generic way. So I have here this undo redo feature set where I would say these two properties along the redo and undo function, this is what makes up the feature. So
Yep.
4 members in the end. And this is a separate one, the local storage, because maybe somebody wants to have the redo undo, but doesn't want to have the local storage feature.
Yeah.
And something else, maybe the other way around. So in the past, if you want to kind of fix this problem in the normal way, like object-oriented programming, then what I would do immediately without even thinking, because we have been trained like this, I would go to class inheritance. So I would say I maybe have a base signal store class, which might contain the restore and the store local storage. So I would then write something like this. This is my base store. And I would say it has those kind of 2 methods. Then maybe someday later, someone else can come up and say, okay, I want to add now also this redo undo features here. You have then 2 options. You can just kind of put in everything into this base store, or you just then use extensions or inheritance. So I would then say base store with redo undo, something like this. I'm going to extends the base store. And I'm going to add here these 2 methods. And then in the end, when it comes to implementing my own signal store, then I would say, okay, this is now my new quiz store. Let's call it like this, quiz store. And I'm going to extending the base store with redo undo. This is the way how I would do it. The problem now is that now with this approach, I can't scale very well, because with every feature that I'm adding, this kind of base store, or however I want to call it, becomes larger and larger and larger. And each store has to deal with maybe a lot of features which it just doesn't require. But there is not really any other way if we are talking here about class inheritance. There is another concept, though, which is called mix-ins. And this is where I would say this is what the signal store follows, but in a different style. So there are different implementations versions. And
I love mix-ins, by the way.
Okay, yeah. And this is what you can actually do. So I can say, no, I don't. When I create a new class like the quiz store, I don't want to extend from a huge, big parent class. I want to be able to explicitly select tiny feature sets that I want to add, and those which I don't want, they should not end up in my class. That's the idea. And the way how we can do this with the signal store is extremely simple, because I can now create my own with functions. Like I did the with state, the with computed, the with methods. I can say, I have my own function, which is called with redo undo. And this is now one tiny feature that I can plug into multiple signal stores if I want to.
Functional programming.
Functional programming, yes. So the way how this works is via composition. So I would then say a signal store feature. This is like a factory function, which creates you a feature for a signal store. This is what the name actually says. And then I can say, well, you know what? I want to add here logic. So for example, I want to have the undo, redo in that feature, which means I can then say here with methods, something like this, just copy and paste it. and also have to add here the parentheses. And then I've defined that redo, undo is as methods are available. And if I'm funny and if I have time, I can also do here with computed if I want to. And I say, okay, this redo, undo computed properties should also be part of it. I can also add here with state. I can also add here with hooks. I can add any other thing. I can even
Anything
add
that we could have in a Signal Store in general, right? Anything that we could have with the Signal Store,
yes,
we have
yes,
on a Signal
yes,
feature.
exactly. And I can do the same thing with local storage. So I can then also say here, okay, this is then just another feature, a return Signal Store feature, where I would then say, okay, so now it's just the methods and nothing else. Save to ls and load from ls, just quick and dirty in this case. And now I have two function methods, or two Signal Store features, which means I can, in this case, remove it from here. Also remove these two things. And I'm not just add it maybe at the beginning or maybe at the end. In this case, it doesn't matter because I'm not using them inside of the store. But I could say here, for example, with redo, undo, I'm just calling it. And this adds all these things which I have just added here. Which means if I go back into a method and I want to see what the store contains, it says already can redo, can undo, redo, undo functions or the methods. They are already there, like I would have added them via another with methods. And I can skip here the with local storage if I want, but I can also add it. Again, this is really up to me. I can pick now those features for the different stores that I have. And in this case, those kind of huge stores via inheritance are just gone. I don't need this approach anymore because I can, again, just pick those things that I need.
One thing I like about this is compared to the conventional NgRx store, where usually you could easily compose a state there in terms of like you can pick different selectors from different features and just smash them together and you get that stuff. But everything else was kind of difficult. For example, in terms of effects, if you defined effects in one place, then you had to reprovide them in another place and maybe hook to another piece of state because effects were completely independent.
Absolutely.
Working. But here you can kind of hook it up all together.
Yes.
But I have one question about this, which is
just one thing,
question.
Just to make sure that the viewers also see this, my with local storage and with redo undo are now on the same level as a with computed or as a with method, which means I can say I have a base configuration for any Signal Store that I want to have. That is also possible. Then I just add here the with redo undo if I want to, and then also here the with local storage. And then
you can endlessly compose essentially.
Exactly.
And you never get a diamond problem or something.
Not really.
What I wanted to ask was actually kind of like maybe relevant to the diamond problem, which was in terms of, for example, you can have with state in your Signal Store feature. So if you have a with state that has a property with the same name as another one in your pipe of these features, what happens then if, for example, the types are different or values?
You're getting a runtime error. It's as easy as that. So the runtime will tell you, look, I've seen that you have a different, that you have the same property again. So if I do here, and if I say here with state, just I have another one where I say this is my title, ABC, and I'm going to save it like this. Then you see here it says trying to override title.
Right. But I see it's wait. Or are those different errors? This is because this is a warning.
This comes from, I think these are the former errors. So if
okay. So essentially, it's a warning. Then it's still interesting to me what happens. Like the new one overrides the old one, as one would expect.
Yes, I think so. I would have to try it out, but I'm pretty sure we are overriding it because it says overriding. And we went for the warning and not an error, because you might want to use a feature and override a certain property which this feature is already exposing. So in a way, it's like, again, if we think about classes, we are overriding a certain method which we are inheriting from the parent class. That needs to be possible. And that's why it's just a warning.
That's neat.
We also have private, of course, just create an underscore to the property name or to the method, and it's not available to the outside.
Yeah. We have some comments. Sharon says, I'm currently working on a quiz app right now. Yeah, well, I think everyone, well, to-do applications are too cliche. No one is doing to-do apps now, especially with AIs, you can like one-shot them. So now we are on the quizzes. It makes sense. I think every front-end developer should at some point implement a quiz.
Yes,
because
once in your life.
An interesting challenge. Not super complicated, but more complex than a to-do app.
Definitely.
It also makes sense for learning.
Yes.
But I mean, now interested what quiz app is Jero working on, because I think that's some production grade stuff. Ali asks when to use NgRx Signal Store, when signals can handle state in separate classes and no extra bundle size. I think they meant to say why to use NgRx Signal Store, maybe.
The why, I mean, as I said, you have seen the extensions, you have seen the kind of proven standards that you get out of the box. So you don't really have to care about, do I make the signal read only? Do I put all the data in one signal, or would I want to use multiple signals? Also the slices, which I haven't shown yet, they are also there, where you would usually have to create one computed per each property you want to have. And as I said, so in the first place, I would say you get the standardization, you get best practices, and then for the advanced part and for the real thing, it's going to be about the extensibility that you get.
Yeah.
Maybe the when as well. So I mean, there is also this conception like, I don't have state in my application. You have state always in the application when something changes. You can even have your own state in your component if you want to. The question is just, what do I use to manage it? Do I manage it explicitly, or again, do I use something like the Signal Store? And here I always say, at least to me, as soon as I move to a service, and as soon as I have a service where I'm putting my signal, that's for me the threshold where I say, okay, now I'm already on a service level to manage that state. Now I'm going to use the Signal Store.
Yeah.
You can also say, no, I only want to do it if my service reaches a certain size. But then again, you have all these discussions. What certain size? 50 lines of code, 100 lines of code. And in the end, you have seen the Signal Store. It doesn't really come with more boilerplate code than writing the service on your own.
Michael says that he talked with an enterprise person recently, ran into max features in a store. What do you mean max features? But they rolled it into a compostable feature. Yes. that's a funny typo. Like, I would love to imagine if we could create features that would become compost and that we could make gardening with them too.
So we have overloads. You have a limited amount of features that you can add to a Signal Store function. But as you have seen, you can always come up with your own Signal Store feature, where you then pack another 10 features, and then you can kind of have groups of features, so to say. So it's kind of infinite, the amount that you can add.
Can we, before we go, talk a bit about the NgRx toolkit? I want to, because it has a very nice documentation. I just want to share my screen and maybe quickly go through the stuff, because I guess a lot of people, even using Signal Store, are not yet using NgRx toolkit, which I believe they should.
So maybe a few words about the history of the toolkit. So it actually came from the early days of the Signal Store, where we were asking about support for the dev tools. And then again, Marco said, not planned yet, but if you want, you can create on your own. And this was the kind of the trigger for me, but also for others. So we were 3 people in the beginning to add features, and I did the DevTools. Michael did the Redux
You are the
part.
3 people.
Yeah, but not how we started.
Yeah.
Michael came
I see.
afterwards, and the other Michael then kind of left.
I see. But
Yeah.
I had you and Michael on a stream, but not Manfred. Maybe I need to invite Manfred
Yes,
next time.
yes.
Yeah. And
No,
looking at
nowadays I
it,
would say it's a full feature set of different things
yeah,
that you just stumble upon when you're writing a full-scale application with the Signal Store. As I said, redo, undo, storage
look.
synchronization. You have this resource integration in it, the dev tools, the data service from the early days. Maybe
Yeah.
we are going to change it. And we even have mutations. So that's also something which is quite cool.
Oh, right. I think I saw an initial idea of this from Marco way back, just when resources were first introduced.
Yes.
And yeah,
So maybe for the others, we know that Angular needs to provide a counterpart to the resources. So not just for fetching something, but also for mutating server state, so to say. And we know that the resource actually came from Tanstack query. And Tanstack also has this concept of a mutation. The Angular team has also been talking about mutations for a very long time. So we know in a certain range what a mutation is and what it will do. And here we thought, why not introducing something mutation-like already, that when you write application code, you have already this mutation mindset in place. And in case Angular will bring it out in the future, that you don't have to change your architecture anymore because you have already those kind of mutations.
Yeah. And also, storage sync too. I mean, a lot of stuff that we... Yeah.
So we are using here also things which can't land in the Signal Store itself, either because we are based on an experimental feature like the resource, or maybe it's just too early and we just need to try out certain things. But for example, the feature factory and also Redux in the end, they ended up in some way or the other in NgRx nowadays. So with feature factory was renamed to with feature. It does exist. It's the same thing. And with Redux became the events plugin, which works a little bit different. But in a way, we were already able to collect some experience with the toolkit, what users want to have, and if those and these concepts are actually quite fitting.
Yeah, I want to say something to people who haven't yet tried to the Signal Store. Just like look at this, look at what you can do with the NgRx toolkit and the Signal Store. This is like a huge amount of functionality in like 7 lines of code.
Yes.
It's pretty terrific. Like you have the entities of handling the sort of data in lists. This is essentially the same that we had with the entity store in the conventional NgRx store, which was by far my favorite feature. It was super easy to work with. Because with NgRx, you usually ended up working with a lot of lists, and just having something that handled everything there made so much sense. And now you can just connect your service that has all the API calls and connect other things like undo, redo, and you're good to go. You have everything.
Yes. I planned maybe to come up with a successor for it because you see already with entity resources. So we are bringing together entities with resources. And if we manage to add the mutation in one feature as well, then it's just a small step to have a successor to the data service, which provides resources, mutations all in one. So that would be cool.
That's gonna be super interesting. I need to build something with Signal Store.
Yes.
Maybe in the future when I don't score a guest for a Wednesday, I will do a solo stream and try to build something with Signal Store, and maybe make also Claude do something with it. I'm super fascinated on some things that it can do with Angular and also cannot do with Angular from time to time. Yeah.
We're also looking currently at the signal forms, but it's a little bit more a complicated topic. If we want to have support for signal forms in the Signal Store, the question is always, do you actually want to have that? And
That has been a significant pain point in the past, not
yes,
only for NgRx, for every state management approach in terms of how do I connect my store to my forms.
yes,
And I think it's worth exploring now because everything is signal now,
yes.
right? You have signal store, you have signal form, you have signal in the middle. How do they bridge? What are the friction points? It's definitely something worth exploring. Maybe I will actually try that out. Really, that's a good idea
Yeah.
for a future stream.
But Armin, as you now hear, I remember that I've read an article of yours where you created a service which was containing the form group, right?
Yes, I think I did something like that.
There
But
was, yes.
that was a solution that wasn't not a universal solution at all, especially when you had stuff like control value accessor. Sometimes it made sense that you could create a separate component, abstract it away with control value accessor, and you have all these events there, right? You could do ng model in, ng model change out, and then your store could do whatever. So it depends. That's why I'm saying now with having everything in a signal, it kind of makes sense that maybe there's an easier bridge there. I
Yes,
don't
yes,
know.
yes.
I haven't tried.
Yeah, no, but I remember because I was thinking if I have ever seen an article or someone putting a form group into a service, and your article came to mind immediately.
Yeah.
So
That
once we have the RFC ready, I would have your opinion as well, because you probably have an experience.
I'm happy to try anything out, especially coming from you guys. I These ideas of how to deal with that stuff have always been painful because I have my entire Angular career was seeing people creating, for example, inputs to pass a form control
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you say, well, maybe you should do control value accessor. Then they would implement it and say, but this is so complicated. Why am I writing all these callbacks and whatever? I don't care. It worked with the input, it worked. Then you ended up with a weird bug or race condition or something. And signals are also solving that. And I'm super excited to see how it all can easily come together. I mean, you know what? I'm absolutely sold on Signal Store. I mean, I enjoyed playing around with it. I'm not fully inexperienced. I haven't built something with Signal Store because all our projects had NgRx
Yes.
conventional store. But yeah, in the future, if I start something, I will definitely stick with Signal Store.
Yes. Yes.
And
yes.
but sorry, I'm gonna use the event plugin. I don't like having methods for everything. I like
Up to you.
event
Yes.
driven.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy it's now in the stable version of the library.
Was this an issue for you, of it not being stable, or would it have been an issue?
Not really. Well, not for me, but usually when we work in a team, there are many people around me that are somehow way more careful than I am.
Okay. Okay.
I'm usually like, you know what's the worst they gonna do? Like remove a name of the method, whatever. We will.
Yes.
Especially now we have like AI tools. We can explain.
Yes.
They can
Yes.
find what they don't find. We can fix manually. It's not that bad. I'm okay with experimental features in production, unless they're like
Me too. Me too. Good. Good. Now,
yeah.
second
Sometimes,
one.
for example, I wouldn't do in the past not stable zoneless in production because
That's another one.
non-stable
Yeah.
zoneless could be because it's such a big thing that
Yes.
all encompassing that somewhere you could get such a weird thing you couldn't even have an idea what went wrong. So that would make sense. But if you have this tool, you have a function, it's experimental, but it works, right?
It works. Yes.
And what's gonna happen? They will fix bugs. They will maybe remove features that you are using, but
Or add new ones.
not going to
Could
be.
also happen.
Yeah, and add new ones. Not a breaking change. If they remove something you use, it's a breaking change. But usually, especially with Angulars, like update timelines, and a lot of popular libraries are following these update timelines. I see NgRx comes up with a new version usually around like 3-4 weeks after the Angular big release, and so do libraries like PrimeNG and so on. So it's a bit of a graphic that we live on, and everyone is kind of okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, I also see it like this. So, I mean, there was actually a talk 2 years ago at NgConf where Jessica said, even if it's experimental, it's stable in that sense that you should not expect that it comes with a lot of bugs because we just wipe coded it or something. I mean, that term didn't exist at that time, but it's
term
not
didn't,
like,
but people still managed to wipe code somehow.
Yes. So it's not like something they throw at us with a very bad quality and say, if it breaks, it's not really our problem. It's actually already quite good. And the only thing is that we have to expect if we install a new version, which we are also not doing on every day, that it could break something in our code. But again, we can pick the time when we update and we know what's going to happen.
Something that I can say to people who are too afraid to use experimental or developer preview Angular features, do you know that the take until destroyed operator became stable in like version 19 or 20?
Yeah.
It existed start from version 15. As long as there was the inject function and it was in version 15. It existed, everyone was using it. It was everywhere.
Yes.
Everyone was like, oh, nice, we don't have to create subjects and blah, blah, just stick with the take until destroy. And no one knew it was not stable. And everyone was fine in the end.
And the funny thing was, even Zoneless, when it was introduced, they said they are using it already as the default whenever in Google someone is creating a new project because they think it already works, which was really astonishing for me.
Yeah.
Because I was, as you said, I was very careful about Zoneless because it's such a core functionality which could have an impact to everything. So I said, maybe not that one.
Two streams ago with Matteo, we were talking about the Google monorepo and how it uses Angular. It has like several hundreds different huge projects, like from GCP and whatnot. And a lot of them are using Angular. And I'm willing to bet at least some of them are using experimental Angular features too.
I guess so.
It's Google. They have like 1 billion users at least, and I guess we can be pretty. Just be careful. But
no, what I always say, I mean, of course, there are maybe certain experimental features where I'm not sure if that one actually will make it to developer preview. For example, for Jest, when they said we don't really know about if it's going to be V-test or Jest. Of course, you have to expect it. Maybe if they decide for V-test, the Jest goes away, which is not happening. But it is very unlikely that they say resources, signal forms. Nowadays, we are going to drop them. We changed our mind. This is not going to happen.
Especially if something is in developer preview, it usually means that here's how it works. We might change names or maybe drop some things out of it. So it's okay to use, especially with experimental, maybe more caution, but with
I think this is something which everyone has to decide on their own.
It doesn't mean it's buggy. Okay,
exactly. That's the point. That's the point. Because I always think that that the term is a little bit misleading, experimental. Because when I hear experimental, it means it's full of bugs, and when I use it, it just crashes. But that's not the
it depends on the people who implement it, and I have a lot of trust in the Angular team. So
me too.
Again, in the NgRx team too. To be fair, if I hear something is experimental from NgRx, it's still something that I'm gonna use.
We do our best, yes. So we try to have a very high quality level.
Yeah. So before we go, let's see what other comments we have. Michael says Jerome is always working on something. You should have him on sometimes. Did you forget Jerome was actually our second guest after you, Michael? And by the way, Jerome is the guest who had the longest session. We stayed here for 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow.
we were talking about Angular MCP and a bunch of things that he created. He has, by the way, if you haven't checked out, you can go on his website and see different Angular tools like the Angular Can I Use and so on. A lot of amazing stuff. He says, I have so many work in progress projects. Yeah, that's what I love about Jerome is his work in process projects usually end up somewhere where we can use them actually.
And he's even organizing a conference.
Yeah.
Jerome.
Michael says, I see in a recent NgRx issue you mentioned the promise returned from mutations may be a good enhancement to Rx method. Personally, I love that.
The problem was that's already dropped. We decided not to do it because there are some serious problems. If you have something where you provide an observable and you want to get out a promise, it could happen that a certain value of this observable doesn't get through the end because it has been filtered out or something. So what should we do with this resulting promise? We need to do something. Yeah. And that's why in the mutations we had to provide some kind of some would say a hackish approach, but we had to provide wrapped higher order pipe operators where you can't use the switch map, exhaust map, but especially the exhaust map was the problem because it can drop certain things. And that's why we have to provide our own wrapper functions that can tell if there is a promise, hey, look, you don't have to wait for this value anymore. The exhaust map just dropped it, but just in case you can now resolve.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to do this for the RX method.
Makes sense. Potatoes says, I use Zoneless in production and utilizing projects and also the HTTP resource. It looks pretty fine, found no issues related to production. I love comments like this. That's great. Again, you should, in general, I like when people are curious. I like when people are not super afraid. Again, it depends on the applications. If you are building something that has to do with airplanes flying, maybe don't experiment much, but front-end stuff, not super critical in terms of like safety, security. Of course, I am pretty okay with people using experimental features. Usually, for example, a lot of my coworkers come and ask, oh, can I use this? And I say, you know what, it's in developer preview. But in my opinion, for example, and a big example is linked signal. People would come ask, they say it's in preview, it's not like stable. And I say, guys, I'm like 99% sure nothing is going to change. Worst case scenario, maybe a name of the callback gets changed. You just Control-Shift-R through your code base, and that's it. And everyone was fine.
Yeah, and usually it's not like if you have a feature which is in developer preview, that it's everywhere in a huge application. I mean, it's just a period of time, and it's you can hopefully very easy replace it.
Yeah. So if I remember, you also have another thing today.
Yeah, but I just checked. I still have some time to prepare. Yes, another meetup.
I have two things. I have something with NG Finland on Friday. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Zoneless. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna convince them that it's the best thing ever. I mean, it's super easy to convince, to be honest. I think I have never met this was probably the best change in Angular. I have never seen anyone say, well, Zone was fine. Why did you need like Zoneless? I'm not gonna upgrade or something because of that. No one ever complained.
I think the way how it was done, this was really a masterpiece. The amount of changes that it requires for such a feature, which such a big impact, and also without almost no risk that something goes wrong. It's just like mark for check, trigger change detection, and that's it.
Yeah. In my, I always thought about Zoneless being like Ivy.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It was a watershed moment. It was before Ivy, after Ivy. And I thought, with Zoneless, it will be like this. But turns out, even for library maintainers, for example, I had founder of PrimeNG, Chatai, on a stream. He said that transition to Zoneless for them is relatively easy. They're doing like incremental changes to components. Just they were adding like these small icons in the documentation, like this already is fully Zoneless, this, and this. and they're not experiencing any significant problems. And if you don't know, PrimeNG is also like a huge library
Yeah.
with a lot of legacy code, and even they don't experience like any super significant problems with that. So it was great.
Yeah. I mean, especially in the beginning when they introduced the signals, they said we require signals for zoneless, but we can't go immediately to zoneless because first we need the signal components, which will run outside of ZoneJazz. So I thought, okay, it will take 2 years at least before we see the first draft for zoneless, but it changed very quickly.
We didn't get signal-based components yet, though, did we?
No. This is then they kind of switched the strategy because they saw that it's unrealistic to require from you to remove the kind of everything, rewrite the complete code base for signal components because you were supposed only to use signals and nothing else. And they also saw that there are alternatives to it in a way like reaching zoneless with this mark for check. And this is why they actually changed their mind. So they did this actually during Angular 17. I was in Vienna, and there was a meetup, NgGluven, and Alex Ricabo was there. And he came with a presentation where the title said, Plan version 2 about zoneless. And I was thinking, what? Did they now change everything? And there he kind of said already, or he indicated that maybe signal components are not necessary to reach zoneless.
Yeah. It's super fascinating to me also because it was so smooth that if I remember correctly, it was version 21 where we got zoneless stable, right, by default.
Stable was already in a minor.
It was
in 20, and default became in 21. Yes.
And when 21 came out, we also had signal forms, experimental. Everyone was talking about signal forms at that point. Zoneless was like, yeah, it works.
We don't talk about it anymore. It works for a long time already.
Yeah. So I learned a lot today.
Great.
Especially about NgRx Toolkit, which I will be definitely using in the future. And I recommend everyone, especially who is thinking about trying NgRx Signal Store in general.
Yeah, and I think for me the main thing what I tried to kind of transport was this extensibility, this very simple extensibility that we get from it.
We convinced at least one person today.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Get into Signal Store. You won't regret it. Actually, everything that I have ever had from the NgRx library and from the team was great. Also, the NgRx Immer small package. I think there is a new version for also Signal Store.
Yes, it exists already for some time. Yes, and the toolkit also has something, but I don't want to get into competition with Tim. It's slightly different. We have an immutable state which would throw if you change the state, even outside of the Signal Store, and Tim has an immutable patch state version.
So again, it was a super big pleasure to have you back.
Thanks, for me as well.
We're gonna make it a recurrent thing. Wait for like several months. I'm gonna come back, say, let's talk about something else.
Right. Maybe next time about testing or something. After you had Younes, I heard that there is something going on. So you should definitely.
Again, you remember how hard it was to communicate to you with the Twitter DMs? I think I'm experiencing the same problem with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I text a lot of people on Twitter, and then I realized that it doesn't work. Like the message wasn't delivered, or somehow it's not. I don't know. For me, every time I go on Twitter, when I go to the feed, everyone is trying to convince me that software engineering is done. Coding LMs will fix everything. And then I use Twitter, and I think, why engineers at Twitter don't go like Cloud Code, fix Twitter, make no mistakes? I don't know. And Twitter is not very good these days. I still use it every day, but you know.
I think Discord or just writing an email also works.
Oh yeah. Ole says, thank you, Rainer. What are plans about your YouTube channel?
Yeah, a lot of plans. Problem was so far, I kind of skipped the second half last year. I have a lot of videos drafted. I definitely want to bring up one for V-test. Also, server-side rendering is something I want to do, one on TypeScript. There will then also be something like the successor, how I would write Angular applications in 2026. I hope that I can record that one during the weekend, but I plan, if time allows me, to come up with more videos soon.
Yeah.
Until then, you can also.
I'm gonna watch the one about V-test.
Yeah, that's going to be a bigger one, a longer one.
Nice.
But you can also watch the other ones, NgNews, that also exists. I do this on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
Signal Store, I want to do a video about the extensions, maybe. Testing, I think, should be easy. We just need to update our documentation. But there is so much content I have about extensions, also going quite into the doing a deep dive and also providing other things. I think that one could be interesting. So if I do a new video about the Signal Store, it's going to be about the extensibility.
Makes sense. Yeah, thank you too for attending. Potatoes. Nice nickname there. Okay, thank you, Rainer. This was great.
Yep.
I again learned a lot from you, and I think the audience did too. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks. And bye.
See you on the next one.
Yep.